One of the reasons I don't trust the university system is that they should have expertise in evaluating psychological injury. Their expertise comes in inflicting psychological injury and then dancing around it politically. Although I'm inside Beta, Psychological Society, and have taken psychology, I don't consider myself qualified to self diagnose. I do know some of the particulars that go into mud wrestling that occurs from armchair psychologists. A couple of examples. If you know very much about psychology, you probably know what Stockholm Syndrome is. It's the idea that for survival's sake, a victim of hostage taking begins to befriend and analyze and copycat their captors, over empathizing with them in order to minimize the physical and psychological peril directed at the person. Of course, the people who took me hostage were monitoring the effectiveness of their Stockholm programming. But there's more difficult issues that pertain to severe, extreme situation, Holocaust injuries. They not only put me through a physical Manson ordeal, but they put me through a psychological extreme situation meant to match or simulate terror of the concentration camps visited on the Jews in Germany. And that was in amnesia and blackout. The mockers said, what I can't get over is there's the shoe before and the shoe now and nothing in between in their letters. Because what they were doing was programming it for daytime television. Jimmy the Weirdo. So role playing gets cast in overtones of pop culture, pop psychology garbage. And the shoes don't really fit. I mean, it's not exactly ball bar, pseudo ball bar. And they play that it's like insult addiction induced by Frank Zappa's cunning and catharsis and all of this stuff. And they claim, who knows you better than we do? Socially, I had to be careful. You see, because socially, there were feedback loops that I wasn't sure how to describe or who was responsible for them. And I did, of course, try to get help from people who seemed capable of understanding what was going on. In the meantime, I was told to put my personal concerns aside and blend in and just go along with things and get over it and that sort of stuff. And it wasn't clear what sort of concept they were hatching. So none of the so-called frame analysis really amounts to very much. I mean, I can't identify who's studying me. I can't identify who's responsible for how I've been used. I can show the deep hypnotic presence of Holocaust survivors throughout my upbringing, throughout my cultural influence. The films I saw, the books that came my way, ranging from Thomas Mann and Bruno Bettelheim to Elie Wiesel, who I sought out on my own, trying to understand, and films, and people who I met, who I was told were Holocaust survivors. Frightening mistreatment I endured and how I was told to cope with it and accept it. Oh, I would like to say that in closing, that it's one of the reasons why I've been so willing to step up on behalf of Mackenzie Shirilla, is because I do not believe that the people in Strongsville, as professional as they are, as caring as they are, as efficient as they are, and as workhorse as they are, as concerned with the feelings of the victims' families as they are, can comprehend what was done to Mackenzie. You know, Russia has become part of American culture in some ways. Sadly, because of our conflicts, but also because our assimilation into what is being bandied as a multipolar world. A multipolar world is one where people who believe things that are different influence each other and have sovereignty over their own territorial issues. And they mingle, hopefully learnedly, in ways that are beneficial to one another. But Russia has suffered a great deal more than the United States, at least until very recently. And the way that they cope with that, it's not an easy thing to assimilate into a chaotic situation where people are making political violence out of their pop psychology. I don't believe in political violence. I know it exists, but it's incomprehensible. I don't understand why anyone would ever do what happened under the Third Reich. I literally cannot comprehend why anyone would do anything like that. But of course, we know people did do it. And we all have to be brave enough to endure some review about some circumspection about the role we even involuntarily played in such a sad outpouring of cruelty. But anyway, the characteristic of cruelty is not one that I find myself comfortable with. And I've never liked what was done to me, but I didn't have the power to understand what I needed to understand in order to make sure it didn't happen to me or anyone else. I hope that makes enough sense that you think about what really went on beneath the laughing stock's mask. The real extreme situation that happened. I think it's very sad that someone else was evidently subjected to something terrible too, and it led to tragedy. Mackenzie Shirilla is in a society that's never going to allow her to fully recover from what happened. But at least some of us should be brave enough and feeling enough to try to understand what happened. I say that myself as somebody who was put through an extreme situation by Holocaust survivors, which clearly seems to be the case with Mackenzie Shirilla. I don't want to say anything more because I do hope that somebody takes my views into consideration. For the sake of Strongville's public safety, there needs to be a real investigation into what happened behind our backs to Mackenzie Shirilla. She's one of the people who probably doesn't believe she's not to blame.